Hi, it's Katrina.
Number 10. The mysterious Sri Lankan Stargate. Sri Lanka's mysterious Stargate is located in the city of Anuradhapura. According to some, the Stargate is a dormant portal from a long-lost time, one which supposedly has the power to send a person or another being spiraling through the universe. Of course, there is no real archaeological evidence for this, but that hasn't stopped the conspiracy theories from running wild. The city of Anuradhapura is an ancient wonder on its own, even without the Stargate. It was the heart of Sri Lanka's early Buddhist culture, established as a holy city in the Land of Kings back in 377 BC. That's over 2,000 years ago. The sacred city contains within its borders an urban park from days long past, about 40 acres in size. The park is surrounded by 3 gigantic Buddhist temples, and it's inside this temple park where the Stargate can be found, etched onto an ancient piece of stone. The name of the carving is Sakwala Chakraya, which translates to universe cycle. Archaeologists believe it might have been used as a star map or a primitive calendar. Others say the strange symbols and shapes within the circle are actually used to unlock the secrets of the universe and open the portal. Seeing as nobody's ever been able to open the portal in modern times, this may not be the case. It's still a major mystery, especially since nobody has any real clue what the function of the Sakwala Chakraya was. There are no historical records of it, and it's not mentioned in any ancient texts. Number 9. Secret Underground World. Underneath the crowded city streets of Beijing in China, there is an underground world, and it's home to about 1 million residents. It's a secret place built of concrete, which took shape back in the 1960s at the request of former President of the People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong. With the threat of the Cold War hovering over China's head, Mao decided to build a whole ton of concrete bunkers underneath Beijing to protect the most important people if a nuclear bomb fell. However, by the 1980s, the threat of nuclear war had pretty much evaporated, and so the bunkers weren't needed anymore. The government then converted the bunkers into things like shops and offices, and today they are also used as underground apartments. Living below ground may not be quite as cool as it sounds. The secret city beneath Beijing is populated primarily by migrant workers, students, and people who can't afford the rising cost of living above ground in Beijing. The price of a subterranean apartment is about 1/3 the cost of living above ground, although the conditions reflect the price. There's an estimated 1 million folks jammed into these underground bunkers like sardines in the dark. There are absolutely no foreigners allowed inside this secret place, but in December 2015, photographer Antonio Facilongo slipped past the guards and took some photographs. He shared the pictures with National Geographic and told the story of the people living there. Many of those he talked to were embarrassed because they told their families that they had good jobs, when in fact they were stuck under the city streets like sewer dwellers. And even though the city would like to prohibit living inside the shelters, it's too late, and they have nowhere to put the 1 million displaced citizens. Number 8. The Secrets of the Masal Pit. The Masal Pit in Germany is one of the most amazing secret places on the planet, filled to the brim with prehistoric fossils. It's located about 20 minutes from the city of Darmstadt, in the middle of the forest, where there stands a flooded strip mine half a mile wide. At first glance, the Masal Pit looks like an ordinary abandoned mine, but it's actually been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1995, and its history goes back 48 million years. This was the Eocene period, when the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was significantly higher than today. The Arctic was a boiling swamp where giant crocodiles lived, and Antarctica was covered in a tropical rainforest. The Himalayan mountains still hadn't been formed yet, and the world's oceans were 150 feet higher than today. That means that back in the day, Europe was just a stretch of water filled with many islands instead of a continuous landmass. In the Eocene period, the Masal Pit was a deep lake 2 miles across. The lake likely bubbled with carbon dioxide, which killed animals who got too close. For years, creatures died and sank to the bottom of the lake, which preserved them miraculously in the sediment. When the mine closed down in the 1970s, the miners left and the dinosaur hunters arrived. Ever since, they've been pulling some of the most spectacular fossils out of the dried lake bed. Paleontologists have already identified almost 45 different mammal species among the thousands of specimens recovered. This lake was a real miracle, attracting a huge number of animals over millions of years, and then killing them and preserving them like flowers that were pressed between the pages of a book. Thanks, lake! Number 7. The first Philistine cemetery. Archaeologists in Israel have recently come across the very first Philistine cemetery ever found. This is quite a big deal because for a very long time, historians have been trying to learn more about the Philistines, the villains in the Bible, best known for their giant warrior Goliath in the book of Samuel. Sadly, there isn't much in the way of archaeological evidence for these people. It took researchers 30 years of exploring Ashkelon in southern Israel before they came across the cemetery, which is 3,000 years old. According to Daniel Master from Wheaton College, the cemetery is hopefully going to reveal much about the Philistines that nobody knew before. Archaeologists found skeletons buried in the graveyard, people put in the ground with jugs and bowls that had likely been filled with perfumed oil. Some skeletons wore bracelets and jewelry, while others were buried alongside weapons. Some people had also been cremated. Some bodies had been thrown into pits, while others were placed neatly into multi-chambered tombs. It's pretty odd because it doesn't only show one single way of burying the dead, but many. This means everything we thought we knew about Philistine burial customs is wrong and needs to be rewritten. Then there's Ashkelon itself, a mysterious city whose secrets we still haven't completely unraveled. It's one of just 5 cities that belonged to the Philistines 3,000 years ago, a major hub on the Mediterranean for trade. However, during the Crusades, the city was destroyed, and much of its ancient history was lost. Number 6. The City of Jinns. Bala Fort, located in the highlands of Jebel Akhdar in Oman, is a mysterious place steeped in legends of spells, black magic, and myth. Some call it the City of Jinns or the City of Magic, and people have been living here since roughly 500 BC. Although the fort itself was built starting in the 12th century AD by the Banu Nebhan desert tribe, it was also rebuilt multiple times and was finally renovated and opened to the public in May of 2012. Omani locals believe the fortress is the epicenter of all paranormal activity in the country. There are multiple legends, like the one that says that 1,400 years ago, a man was stoned to death by the villagers for practicing wizardry. This dead wizard then turned into a jinn or a spirit and now haunts the city. There is also a tree growing in the citadel which supposedly bestows an untimely death upon any foreigner who touches it, as it had been tainted by yet another sorcerer. Any creepy story the villagers could think of, they passed it along. The tall walls and strong towers of Bala Fort grew until most of the people living nearby simply left it alone to decay naturally. Do you believe in the existence of black magic? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 5. Psychedelic Salt Mine. 650 feet underneath Yekaterinburg in Russia is a place called the Psychedelic Salt Mines. The mines feature mind-bending natural formations that formed millions of years ago. The walls are brightly colored in yellows and whites, reds and blues, with the colors swirling in and out of each other in a psychedelic mixture unlike anything else seen on Earth. The long and winding tunnels of the mine are like a free acid trip, like rivers of color had actually dried and then been preserved in the rock. In truth, that is kind of what happened. The unbelievable swirls of color are there thanks to the layers of mineral carnallite. It's totally natural and more than a bit trippy. The mine was originally used to harvest salt, but most of the operations have ceased, and now the miles and miles of twisting passageways are totally abandoned. However, nobody is allowed in without government permission, and so this is one secret place you probably won't be visiting. And besides, the tunnels are pitch black, and the air is full of tiny salt particles. These salt particles create a feeling in your throat like you're parched in the desert without any water. Number 4. The secret throne of the Knights Templar. One of the most mysterious strongholds of the Knights Templar is hiding underneath the cobblestone streets of Paris. Historians believe it was once their mightiest fortress, a place which these days isn't nearly as imposing as it once was. The fortress was built in the 13th century in a small part of Paris that was actually covered completely by a swamp. It was a gigantic fortification, with a great tower, turrets for defense, and high walls to keep everyone out. After the Templars were gone, the fortress fell into disrepair. It was used briefly to jail the French royal family during the French Revolution, and then was demolished by Napoleon III in 1853. These days, the stronghold is gone. A park was established over its remains in 1857, today called the Square du Temple. Many people who dine at the fancy cafes have no idea that they are sipping coffee at the exact place where the Knights Templar held their most secretive meetings. And since the entire area is now covered in stones and brick, there is no real way to see what's underneath. That said, experts believe there could in fact be secret underground chambers or passageways that never got destroyed, but were built over as Paris moved into the modern age. Number 3. Fontanane Cemetery Caves. The Fontanane Cemetery Caves in Naples is one of the most secretive and disturbing places in all of Italy. It's an ancient European ossuary, one which began as a secondary burial ground in the 1500s. This was a time when the churchyards and cemeteries were overflowing, and many European countries didn't know what to do. In Naples, the solution was to temporarily dispose of corpses inside of a cave on the outskirts of town. It started when the Spanish occupied Naples in the 1500s, and then the caves really took off during the plague outbreak of 1656. Bodies were dumped into the caves all the way into the 1830s with the cholera epidemics. But 1656 was definitely the worst, seeing as the plague killed about half the population of Naples, or 150,000 people. It took an entire generation for the city to recover socially and economically. With so many bodies being in the caves, the whole area soon took on a dark aura for the townsfolk. It became known as a haunted place, somewhere filled with the tormented souls of those who never received proper burial and were stuck in purgatory. Then, when Naples was hit by an extraordinarily heavy rain, the city was flooded and the cave poured out skulls and bones into the streets. Finally, in 1872, the anonymous remains were cataloged and organized. Everything was buried, and the dead were placed into their own boxes or crypts. Even today, people go to the Fontanane crypts to ask the dead for favors and to place wishes on small rolls of paper into their empty eye sockets. Number 2. Goblin Valley. Goblin Valley State Park is by far one of the stranger places in Utah, and one with an epic history. The park's scenery is stunning, and it has plenty of outdoor activities for a family of adventurers. It lies deep in the San Rafael Desert and is home to thousands of goblins. Not real goblins, of course, but rock-shaped goblins. There is a section of the park filled with soft sandstone formations which have eroded over many thousands of years. The erosion has created squat, goblin-looking rocks that look ominous in the dark, like an army of marching monsters. But in fact, these formations are called hoodoo rocks, and they're completely natural. But Goblin Valley State Park is more than just a collection of rocks. There is also evidence that Native American tribes lived here a very long time ago. There are pictographs and petroglyph panels here, which were left over from a variety of ancient cultures. The Paiute tribes made artwork here, as did the Ute and the Fremont. Number 1. Secret Cave Chamber. In Gibraltar, a mysterious cave chamber was sealed completely off by sand for about 40,000 years. This chamber is located deep in the back of the Vanguard Cave, and it had been lived in by Neanderthals prior to being sealed shut. At least that's according to Clive Finlayson from the Gibraltar National Museum, who was studying the cave when he came across the lost chamber. It was about 43 feet long, filled with eerie stalactites hanging from the ceiling. Clive and his team of scientists were also surprised to discover the bones and ancient remains of animals, such as hyenas and griffin vultures, as well as gigantic sea snails called whelk. The researchers also discovered a tooth from a 4-year-old Neanderthal in this same cave a few years ago, and they think the child was a victim of a hyena attack. But the snails proved significantly harder to place because hyenas didn't eat snails, and they wouldn't have carried something from the sea all the way into a dark cave chamber. That was something only a Neanderthal would have done. Researchers believe Neanderthals had lived inside the cave over 40,000 years ago. They wandered out in the daytime to collect snails, then retreated into the safety and cozy darkness of the secret cavern, like the womb of the earth. Thanks for watching! Which of these mysterious places would you like to visit? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to subscribe and come back soon. See you later. Bye!